We're live, everybody. Yeah. Hello. Hello, everybody out there in the UK land. I'm here with Noir at the bar, and we're about to tell you everything about how it came about and around the NHS book, which I've got here. Oh, you could just grab it for me. Yeah. If you could tell us a little bit about how you got involved with it, Vic, to start with.
Yeah, so just over 4 years ago, I missed going to a Noir at the bar in Carlisle, which was run by Graham Smith. And I emailed him my apologies, and he was like, you know what? You've got loads of great crime writers in the Northeast. You should set one up. And I was like, but who would host it? And then sort of a few months later, I found myself standing in front of a room full of people presenting Newcastle Noir at the bar. Since then, I've run them 3 or 4 times a year, and I've done a few in Harrogate as well. But obviously, once lockdown started, we had to find a way of getting everybody together and keeping them sane. So my lovely friend Simon here offered to help me set it up, and we've basically been going. It's our 17th on Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, and I think I've seen everyone but 2. But thanks to the catch-up system, I've been able to catch up with that. How did you decide on how many people you were going to have on the online one?
I've had varying numbers at the live ones across the years, and sometimes I get really excitable, and because there's so many people want to read, I go overboard and have like 14, and that can take quite a lot of corralling. And the first couple we had 8 or 9, and then it just seemed to be we're stuck with 10. And again, I hadn't really necessarily anticipated it being weekly until I saw the amount of people who wanted to take part and the amount of love around Noir at the bar anyway. So we sort of agreed that we'd go for 10, although we have made a few exceptions. On a few occasions we've had 11 as well.
Yeah. No, you did one of the early ones, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. The virtual ones, I did the 2nd or 3rd one, I think. It's all a bit of a blur in lockdown now. All I know is I got a semi-abusive message saying, "Can you do this?" from Vic, which is what I normally get. And me being me, I'm too scared of Vic to say no, so I more than happily. But I did, I knew that it would work because the events. I mean, I think that's how we got to know each other, wasn't it, Vic? We met each other at Noir at the bar, and was it Edinburgh?
The first one in Edinburgh, yeah.
That's right.
I'd met you once before in Newcastle, and that was it.
We got talking, and it just kind of developed from there that we kind of, started chatting, and okay, we'll come along and we'll do a few. So when lockdown hit and I heard that Vic was doing it, I knew that it would work because I knew that she could do it from old, and it would just kind of evolve from there.
What would you say the major difference is with you presenting your chapters as online to off? I
think the big thing is you're not getting that audience participation. This is great, and it's a testament to the creativity of crime writers that we've managed to come up, and people like Vic have managed to come up with a way to keep things going. But it's not the same as being in a pub with your mates, swapping drinks, ribbing people who are getting increasingly nervous. I'm thinking of Derek Farrell when he was at Newcastle the first time, although he was brilliant. You're ribbing them, you're winding everybody up. And the thing that you don't get with a virtual thing is you don't get that visceral audience participation reaction.
The feedback.
I mean, there's a writer / poet / force of nature called Ashley Irwin, who does kind of, what do you call it? Slam, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Slam. And it's not reading, it's performance art. And to watch not only Ashley do that, but to watch the audience reaction to that in real time is something really special. And that's what shows what's missing here, because you're getting 50% of it because she does a normal, brilliant performance, but you're not getting that stunned moment of silence afterwards. So everybody goes, and then, hey, and you're not getting that visceral kickback, which is what's missing, I think.
I think we are trying to make.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex.
Yeah. All right.
I think we're trying to make it as much like a bar as possible. So we're still pulling names out of the hat. We'll have the Q&A and the chat facilities. So as far as it can be, it's as much like a bar as it can be virtually. But yeah, I think one thing that's the same with regard to Ashley Irwin is nobody wants to follow her, whether it's virtually or in real life. Nobody wants to follow that performance because it's just, it blows everyone's socks off. And where do you go from there?
Yeah, she should go into professional narrating because she was
Absolutely.
amazing. Yeah, she was amazing. What made you decide on 30 books for the 30 shorts for the short story collection? What made you decide?
This is all Simon's work, the anthology.
So we'd been running for about 3 or 4 weeks with the virtual Noir, I would say, and we don't make any money from it, neither Vic nor myself. So we never charge. But what we do is at least try and cover some of the costs, because we don't charge to attend, but we have to pay for the webinar facilities, and as it got more popular, we're having to pay more and more money for that, and the email and the social, the blah blah blah, all of those sorts of things. So we were seeing people make donations very kindly to that, and I'd said to Vic in an email one day, I think the email I sent started off saying, "This is probably a really stupid idea, so just tell me to shut up if you think so. But why don't we ask some of these great authors that we've had speaking at Virtual Noir at the Bar, whether they'd contribute a story, if they've got something lying around that they haven't used, that maybe they'd give us, that we could put together as a collection." I've self-published a few collections of short stories, so I thought I could do it, and it just rolled from there, really. So we put it out there, the request, thinking, well, maybe we'll get 1 or 2, and we were just blown away within 24 hours, the number of authors that had either appeared at the bar or were going to be appearing, that just said, yep, either here's something, but more often, which was even better, to say, I'll write you something. I'll write something new for it. And that was just incredible.
What was it like putting it together and then putting your own? Because I know you've been doing it for 20 years. Yeah.
So I've worked in publishing I've been publishing for 20, 25, 26 years, but with a very different sort of publisher. I worked for Oxford University Press. So for many years I was the head of digital marketing there, which Oxford University Press, great publisher that it is, doesn't tend to publish too much in the crime fiction areas. They do some, but not too much. So yeah, it was certainly the quickest project I've ever worked on, and my involvement in publishing in the past hasn't really been as an editor or a compiler. I have edited one other person's book, but that was a business title. So it was a bit of a learning curve, but everybody just got involved, and the authors that have got a lot more experience than me, either in producing their own materials or getting the rights back from their own books, were really able to advise on a huge amount of stuff that maybe wasn't quite familiar to me. So sorry, I'm keeping getting messages flicking across my screen from people sending Facebook messages that may be in this room at the moment. So it was a very quick process. I think we went from the idea to actually getting it published within 6 weeks, which, considering how many original stories were in there, was pretty impressive, I think. And we couldn't really have done that without the editors that we had, who were brilliant. We had 3 volunteer editors, again, no pay, who just, so that was Luke, Emma, and John, who just turned things around so quickly, with brilliant comments.
Yeah.
What made you decide on a dentist for your short story there?
It was lucky happenstance, as 95% of my writing career is. I had that story kicking around, and the moment I heard about NHS, yeah, Vic's laughing because the thought of me having luck in my writing career. Basically, I had this story kicking around for a while, and years ago there was a dentist that I had who, lovely guy, but he was glacially calm, and I mean, completely. He was like Dexter quiet, and I remember thinking at the time, me being me, there's something in this, and I just took the idea for a walk, and it turned into what it was. And then when this came along, I remembered this story, so I dragged it out of the archives and kind of gave it a spruce up and thought, yeah, that works, given the fact that it's NHS, medical, etc. And we'll just take it. And it was nice and gruesome, and me being me, I thought, right, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And Neil's story, more than any other, caused havoc with the spell check because there was so much phonetic pronunciation within there. The spell check in the end just kind of went, nah, I give up.
You have a go at it.
How did you come up with your sound?
Well, it sounds a very complex, ego-driven way to get your story in print, to think up a 30-story anthology just to get your own in there. But my original thought was, well, it's noir from the bar. It's virtual noir at the bar. Let's have a basic theme involving a bar or a pub or a drink of some sort in there. So I thought I'd use an old short story of mine and put it in there. And then I was in the supermarket one day during lockdown and just got this idea, went home, wrote it, and wrote it in about 3 hours from scratch and thought, actually, I quite like that. So it was quite fortunate, really.
Yeah.
And amazingly, it was selected to go into the collection, which,
That was so lucky.
I know.
What would you say that your biggest tip is, writing a good short?
Well, I'll bow to Neil on that one, and Vic.
Well, I'll let Vic go first.
Okay. I would say, personally, I think it might be a more complex thing to write a short story than a novel, because you've got to pack so much into a very short space of time. So in my opinion, you can't waste a word. So brevity of language for me is possibly the most important thing in a short story. Neil?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the other thing is just to kind of move that forward half a step is the idea has to be very concentrated, especially for somebody like me who never plans plots. I get an idea and then I just run with it, and hopefully 100,000 words later, I've got a book at the end of it. So to take that and shrink that down into a short story, you've got to be very disciplined. I think one of the key things is, as Simon was saying, he wrote his in a couple of hours. It's a sprint rather than a marathon. You just have to get a very concentrated idea, strip it down to its basic, offer a little appetizer of what a bigger world might be, and then just run with it. But understand that you've got to do it in a very enclosed, disciplined space and not run off to 50,000 words.
And I think, I love short stories, and I know they really divide people. Some people don't get on with them, and I've published 3 collections of my own short stories, and I know, well, my mother has occasionally said, was there a couple of pages missing in one of them, because it seemed just end, which is always great to hear. But I think my feeling on short stories are they kind of work 2 ways. Either they've got an amazing twist. So I grew up firstly reading Roald Dahl, and then people like Ray Bradbury and Robert Bloch, and those classic kind of 1950s, either science fiction, horror, crime, noir stories, really. Or I think they work in a way that do make me want to know, well, what did happen next? Or there's the short story, and you almost develop that story for yourself because you want more. But I think both Neil and Vic are absolutely right that it is that distillation, that just making everything count in that shorter amount of words you have.
What is it about crime do you think that leads to it to be a good genre for the short?
Well, personally, I'm a great 2020 hindsight thinker. So when you get into an argument or something, and then later you think, what I should have said was this, or what I should have done was this. And I think crime lends itself very nicely to that. That there's a number of my stories certainly that'll have come, like Neil says, with a dentist, from being in a situation and thinking, what would have happened if? And invariably, just the way my mind goes, it tends to end in something criminal or nasty, or a lot of revenge stories. The very first time I went to New York, I traveled a lot for my work back years ago, and I got ripped off very, very badly the first time I went to New York by a rogue taxi driver. So rather than brood on that, I wrote a story which was essentially just a revenge story about what happened in that scenario if I wasn't the meek ginger 9-stone weakling that I was at the time. And what happens if a rogue taxi driver picked up the wrong person and tried to rip them off. And I got paid for that story and actually managed to cover the amount that I'd been paid off. So there you go.
Win-win.
Yeah.
But that's the way I think crime works well in short stories, because it is just that what if idea.
I think it allows you to sort of transgress without actually doing anything wrong as well. So it's kind of like you say, if you're kind of meek and mild and like me, passive aggressive, I'm never going to do anything aggressive. Whereas I can read crime all day long because I just think, yeah, okay, someone's getting what they deserve.
What kind of style do you say you prefer to read then, Vic? I know you read loads. You probably read just as much as I do, but yeah.
I possibly read less since my son was born, Alex, but I really love psychological thrillers, and I like unusual sort of takes on the genre. So, for example, I've just read True Story by Kate Reid Petty, which is, it's been marketed as crime, but it's something more than that. And it's the same as my book of this year so far is If I Can't Have You by Charlotte Levin. So it's about the characters and their relationships. And although, yes, it'll be marketed as crime, it's deeper than I think a lot of people would expect.
What's it been like presenting online then?
I really like it, actually. I think because I'm not standing there in front of however many people, we've had over 100 people at several of the events. And generally in the bar that I run the live events, we have about 60 people turn up, and that is terrifying. Whereas I'm literally at home in my surroundings, just talking into my computer. And although I know in my mind, I know how many people are in the audience, I know which people are in the audience, it actually helps me a little bit to calm my nerves. I do actually really there are some really nice things about presenting from your own home, but it's like Neil says afterwards, although we have been having after parties, it's not quite the same as sitting in the town hall having a few pints or whatever with Ashley and Rob and seeing where the evening takes them. I mean, I did miss the infamous evening of Derek Farrell, Ashley Irwin, Louise Fairbairn and Neil last year because I was pregnant. But to be honest, I think my son did me a favour that night.
Oh, yes. God, yeah, that was one for the record books.
Can you tell us anything about it, Neil, or can't you remember?
I can remember, well, basically, sorry, to give context, Louise is a pal of mine who is a crime blogger as well, and she goes to quite a lot of the events. And we'd been at Noir at the bar, and Derek was there, and obviously Ashley was there. So we got talking, and we decided to go out for some drinks. Ashley is an ambassador for a whiskey company in America. So she knows all the best bourbons to have. So she was dragging us around these bars in Newcastle, picking out the strongest bourbons she could find. And we ended up down by the waterfront. But she swapped to tequila, I think it was. And she's buying us these brutally strong whiskies. And we're chugging them back. And she's drinking this stuff like it's water. So, you know, the night progressed. And I woke up the next morning feeling like crap. Checked in with everybody else, and everybody else was feeling like crap. We went back to the library and actually sitting there fresh as a daisy, having a breakfast. Yeah, I've been out for a 3-mile run. I'm just having my thing and I'm about to go to my event. How you doing, guys? Yeah.
She can write, but she can also drink, I think is the moral of that tale.
Oh, yeah, she can drink all right.
But I think it was drinking at a festival that got your latest series going, wasn't it now?
It wasn't drinking at the festival, although I was hungover, so that might explain my general frame of mind. I was at I was at Bloody Scotland, and I was up. There's an annual part of Bloody Scotland. There's a football match between the Scottish and English crime writers up at the top of the town at Cowan's Hospital. There's a bowling green behind it. That's where they have the football match. And I'm sitting watching the football match, and me being me, I thought this would be a great place to dump a body. And then somebody kicked the ball, and I thought this would be a great place for somebody to decapitate a body and dump it. Me being me.
Seems legit.
So
yeah, we all have those thoughts, right?
The hangover probably helped. So I thought, you know, I took this idea for a walk, and I went up for a walk around Stirling to clear my head. And I started looking at the place with new eyes of you could dump a body here, you could do this, you could do that, you could do that. It's in the centre of Scotland. It's a great place where Scotland's bloody history crashes into the new. It's a gateway to Scotland. What could you do with this? Nobody's written about Stirling. Let's see what we've got. And as it happens, that night, my now publisher wanted to meet with me for a drink. And she said, you know, I really like your work because I was 3 books into my Edinburgh series. I love what you do, but I can't take you mid-series. Have you got anything else that you can pitch to me? So after I'd stopped laughing manically and slapping the table, I said, well, I've got this story about a decapitated body and this big muscle-bound guy who's going to find out what's going on. And it's set right here in Stirling. Are you interested? So she got me to write a couple of chapters, and 2 months later, Connor was born, and then we were away to the races from there.
And of course, it's coming out on the 3rd of September on audio, of course.
All 3 of them, yeah. The third one's out in hardback on the 3rd of September, but all 3 of the books, No Man's Land, No Place to Die, and The Point of No Return, are coming out on Audible on the 3rd of September as well.
Because No Place to Die was on the Bloody Scotland long list last year, wasn't it, I think?
No, No Man's Land was longlisted last year
For
the McIlvanney, which is the second time I've been up for an award at Bloody Scotland.
Yeah.
Always the bridesmaid. And there's a horrific thought for you.
3rd time lucky, Neil. Come on.
Yeah.
Next nomination, you'll do
Next
it.
year. Well, we'll see what folk think of The Point of No Return first.
Well, psst, I'm reading it at the moment, and I'm very much enjoying it.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
What have you got coming up for us before the end of the festival then? End of Noir, because it's ending at the end of August, isn't it, online?
We're ending our weekly run at the end of August. Simon and I are currently coming up with ideas on what we're going to do after that, because one thing I've actually realised since we've been doing this on a weekly basis is there are a lot of people who can't come to live Noir at the Bar events. We've had viewers from literally all over the world, New Zealand, America, Europe, and so forth. And so we would like to keep it going virtually, as well as hopefully getting back into live events when it's safe to do so. But I recognise there are people who are isolated every day. So I have a long-term health condition, and there are some times when I just can't leave the house either. And it had really kind of never occurred to me that we're opening this space up to people who can't come to live events. So we definitely want to keep doing stuff online as well as in real life. So we're in discussion on how that's going to look now. We've got some really exciting writers coming up between now and the end of August, though. So again, Noir at the Bar is all about champion new authors alongside established authors, and we've had some cracking new writers, and we've got some more cracking new writers and some great established authors due to read with us before the end of August.
Well, I've really enjoyed it. It's become a fixture of my Wednesdays, I must admit.
That's lovely. That's what we like to hear, Alex.
It must be really difficult to just decide when you get in someone from the other side of the world when to fit them in, because the hat thing must make it a little bit more awkward than black.
It is. I mean, if somebody has to be away really quickly or has to join us later on, there are certain things, like if someone was going to join us later because it's 6:30 a.m. in New Zealand, I wouldn't put their name in the hat until they joined us, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know last week there was a lot of discussion about how nerve-wracking it was when I was shuffling the hat, and people were saying it was, you know, I had them on hot coals all night until the name was drawn, which I've kind of never really thought about it, even though I have read it Noir at the Bar a few times myself. I've never really thought about how nervous you get. I don't know why. Apparently it's terrifying.
I'm just glad that when I do it in a couple of weeks, it's not going to be me.
Yeah. You've definitely got the best idea there, Alex. Absolutely. Rope Rob Parker in my
mind. And I started writing through writing groups and things. How many people have you had from writing groups on Noir at the Bar, online or off?
I actually run weekly creative writing sessions, well, in Newcastle when I can. At the minute I'm doing it via Zoom, but I'm skiving tonight so I can talk to you. So when I did the very first Noir at the Bar, I invited somebody from my writing group to read. And to be honest, since then, I think I've had certainly several from my own writing group. I know there are others who've appeared. We've got a chap reading with us in August called Brian, who is in a writing group in Scotland. And actually, I think quite a few of the established authors are still in writing groups. So I'm not actually sure how many, but quite a few writing group members, and yourself, of course.
Yeah, and I just feel quite lucky, really, to be honest, because I didn't think I'd get one done in time before you finished. So,
yay! Well, it's worked out perfectly.
Yeah. What would you say if I was like trying to go long form versus short?
I don't know about Simon and Neil, but I started off writing shorter pieces of work. So I started writing short stories, and then kind of I found it gave me more confidence to then try and expand ideas and you know, give a different form a go. So I would personally think it was a natural progression, and I would encourage you to go for it all the way.
Yeah. Because I know that novels can range between 90,000 and over 100. I mean, on audio, on average, it's about 10 hours. What would you say is the optimum length for enjoyment?
I mean, I think it's quite interesting because I mean, you have got it depends what you're wanting to do with the book as well, to a degree. I think I ran a few writers' workshops for around the country, and it's always the first question that I ask is, you know, why do you write? Is it to be published? Is it to make money? Is it to make a point? Is it to, you know, because any can be published, you know, anybody now, you know, you can self-publish, you can publish on social media, you can create your own website and do that sort of thing. So, you know, there's questions around that. I mean, I actually love novellas. You know, that kind of halfway gap between a short story and a novel. So if you look at things like, you know, Stephen King and what he did with Shawshank Redemption, or The Body that was turned into Stand By Me, or, you know, John Steinbeck, Ernest Hemingway, all of those sort of people are really kind of writing novellas that are those books anywhere between 25, 45,000 words, really. But, not very easy to sell unless you're a Stephen King or a whatever. But, I personally tend to go one way or the other. So I actually stopped writing a novel because it had got to 105,000 words, and I was about halfway through, and I thought, really, for a first novel to be published, that's probably not. You don't want to be writing The Stand is your first novel. So I think there's a different skill of structure, really. And I've got quite good, I think, at doing that with short stories, but I'm terrible at it at novels, at just reining myself in because it's almost too much. There's too many things to pick and try and just sell everything. And a good editor will go through it and say, you don't need that, you don't need that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the way I found it personally.
Neil, what do
What
yours
was your-
usually?
I'm very much like you, Vic. I started writing short stories from as far back as I can remember. I can remember being in primary school and being given the first, those old notepads you got with the scalded pink cardboard covers, which were an absolute nightmare for me. Being left-handed, I wrote like that down the page because I couldn't write in a straight line. But the moment I was given those and told, right, that's for your stories, go. That was it. I was away to the races, and that was me. But I'd always written, and I think short stories for a trainee writer, if you want, are valuable because they let you try things, they let you sharpen your voice, they let you cut your teeth effectively. But then when it came to writing a novel, I mean, I'd written kind of abortive stuff of 60, 70,000 words, which was basically Stephen King ripoffs and stuff like that. But then there came the point where, as you know, my first book was dedicated to my gran because that was a promise I'd made. And it was a case of, right, you need to write a book here. That needs to be 80,000 words. You've got one idea, let's run with it. And that was it. And it was just a case of, because I don't plan plot, Simon used a word I'm very unfamiliar with called structure. I just run with an idea. I remember having a conversation with Derek Farrell, and he said about No Place to Die, it's wonderfully plotted, it's so tightly pulled together, and everything's tied up at the end. And I'm sitting going, yes, it is. I plotted it wonderfully. Derek now knows that I don't plot anything, but yeah, I'm lucky.
And how did it look the first draft, Neil?
Say again, sorry?
How did it look the first draft? Was it equally well plotted?
Well, the first draft is always the chaos draft. It's always the one where you're just basically getting the idea out on page, and then you can fix it from there. But I'm lucky in that, A, I come from a journalism background, so if I'm given a word count, I'll hit it. B, I'm contracted to write books that are between 90 to 100,000 words long, so I've got to deliver that. But luckily enough, I've always been able to, the story has always naturally just fallen into that. I think that's maybe because I've been such a voracious reader coming up that I've got a natural feel for what a book is. What I don't have a stand in me. I couldn't do Stephen. Well, I could, but then I dropped down dead thereafter. It would be hit send and then I'd die at that point. I couldn't do that. But I know what a novel is, and I've got the feel now that I'm 6 books in. I've got the feel of a pace of, oh, right, okay, I'm about halfway now. All right, I'm 3/4 of the way now. And that's normally the point where I go, right, I better figure out who did it.
And do you find yourself following a 3-act structure or a 5-act structure or a 9-act structure? Or is it just the story?
It's the story. I don't plan, because if I plan, it kills the story for me. I will take an idea. For example, with No Place to Die, there's that first line that came out of nowhere.
Are you going to read it?
No. Came's probably the wrong word. But that idea, that line just popped into my head and I had to run with it. And then because I don't know what the hell's going to happen next, I am writing with a certain pace because I am trying to tell the story to myself and I'm desperate to figure out the puzzle. If I planned it beforehand and I knew exactly word for word who did it, why did it, what did it, well, I've solved the puzzle. So why do I then go and write it again?
Yeah.
But if I don't know what's going on, I just immerse myself into that world, and then I just trust the process and hope for the best.
It's my wife does jigsaw puzzles and Sudoku and crosswords and all of these sorts of things, and she says, why don't you ever do these? And I say, well, because my puzzle yesterday was figuring out how to find someone that's changed their name, that's moved into a new house, and how you do that. And because it was a plot point that I had to figure out. But like you say,
Yeah.
I just decided that had to happen. And I was like, that's the kind of puzzle that I find interesting and challenging. And and along the way, you kind of pick up a 100 different skills, don't you? Whether it's how to pick a lock, or you don't necessarily have to put all that detail in, but it's just my internet search. God knows what happens if I drop down dead after pressing that enter button, because whoever looks through my internet history is going to be just thinking, what was it's all about?
Yeah, no
They're
comment
going to
on
be
that
looking
one.
under an assumed name. He's definitely just gone to ground for the insurance money.
How has lockdown affected writing for you in what you're doing?
I think lockdown isn't the biggest thing that's affected my writing. I think having a baby last July affected it more. Since I had my son, I try to write every day and night. So again, I'm skiving. But yeah, I mean, lockdown for me, because I'm still doing my creative writing group on a Monday, that 2 hours of writing time that I get a week is still there. But that's all I get to do at the minute.
Just to pick up on what Vic said there about a child kind of throwing your writing, my second book, The Storm, I can't remember writing that book because it was written. I cannot remember writing that book.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
People will come up to me and say, oh, that's great, and we loved that, and we did this, and we thought this was brilliant, and what about this with Doug and Susie? And I'll sit and look at them and go, why do you like that? Can't remember it, because after Falling Fast and everything that happened, I got signed up for 3 books. And I was just coming up with the idea for the second book, and I was just writing it when Fiona fell pregnant, and she had the world's most horrendous morning sickness. So there was that, and then Alex came along, and there were the nights, and there was the bottle feeds, and there was trying to make everything okay, and I was on a deadline to deliver this book, and I don't know how I did it, but I got a book out.
I don't know how he did it.
Might explain why it's so violent, right enough, because the mother-in-law came to visit when Alex was born. However, there's a joke I'm not allowed to say again. But yeah, so that kind of, but I don't remember that book. But as for how lockdown has affected the writing, I was very lucky in that I managed to get The Point of No Return in just before lockdown hit. So by the time we were in lockdown, I was doing edits. I wasn't actually actively writing a new book. I was editing something that was already whole and complete. So even that was weird, though, because editing something that talks about Connor goes to a pub, Connor meets his dad at a pub, Connor goes to a hotel, Connor does this. And I'm sitting reading this going, that's not reality now. And one of the things that hit me was crime fiction or contemporary crime fiction reflects what's going on in the world around us. Yeah. How do you reflect this when we're not at the end of the story yet? I've got to write another book that's out next year, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how do I reflect on what's happening now, and how is what's happening now going to reflect in that world a year from now? So I'm still grappling with that in the back of my head at the moment. But I've been really lucky that I've had
because your books are set. Your books are set now, aren't they, as well? So there's no kind of getting around that.
No. So I've got to try and look to the future without seeing it.
Simon, I feel like maybe your writing's actually been more productive since lockdown. Have I imagined that? Or
my writing is such fits and starts, and I can blast out 8,000 words in a day, and then do nothing for a week and a half. I really don't. I have a shocking lack of pattern or routine in my writing, unfortunately. I wish I did. And it's not it's not it's just feeling in the right mood to do it. It's not forced on me by circumstance, because in theory, lockdown should have been great for me. I'm a consultant who spends most of their real life training, and that's obviously been curtailed a lot during this period. So in theory, other than doing virtual noir at the bar, yeah, that's why I haven't written anything. It's all your fault.
Well, I was going to say, I can't imagine you having any time to write anything, because virtual noir at the bar takes up so much of your time.
No, it's definitely a right frame of mind rather than a time issue for me.
Bless you.
I can see a few audience questions along the side there. Could one of you read it out for me if you can see it?
I can't
see any questions. I can just see comments, like people saying hello.
If you could just read this one. I've got one in there. I think I've got one here.
I can just see hi all, memories, choice of our hi all, hey everyone.
I've got, is that a question? A longer one now. No. Okay, I'm struggling to work out whether it's a question or a comment.
I think that was your comment, just where to go to see the videos, wasn't it, Vic? Where you can find all the old shows of Noir at the Bar.
Yeah, I think Louise actually posted that. Thank you, Louise. No, we don't think there's any questions there, Alex.
Okie dokie. Right. If you think that book bars are going to be a problem with the writing thing, how long do you think it'll be before, with social distancing at the moment, before Noir at the Bar offline gets in flow?
It's really difficult, because obviously, even the scientists aren't really sure. It's really difficult for me, because I have to shield. So even if some people are, I think I know some people have been back to the pubs, but for me, I won't be able to go until it's much safer, probably until there's a vaccine, to be honest. So I did see the Prime Minister say something today about might not be this year, might not be next year, and sort of put my hands and was like, oh God, I was hoping for better news. But hope springs eternal, hopefully sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Well, I haven't been either.
It makes me really sad, actually, because yeah, it's a worry.
Definitely a big thing. What names would be Uber names that you've not had at the moment that you'd really want?
I know what Simon's answer is.
Well, I had a list of 3 of my dream authors, and we've had 2 of them. I was absolutely thrilled to get Lawrence Block, who, going back to short stories, I mean, if you want one collection of short stories, then Lawrence Block's collected mystery stories, which is available for something like $3.99 for about 900 pages on Amazon Kindle, I think, is just one of the best collections of short stories, crime short stories you'll ever read. And it's a brilliant mixture of twists and so on. So Lawrence Block, Joe Lansdale, we were lucky enough to have, and then really, I mean, if Stephen King begged us, I think I'd probably try and persuade Vic to find a space for him, but
I think I'd squeeze him in.
We'd make him beg a bit.
I'm really lucky.
Can somebody tag him in on this?
Yeah, you don't want to seem too keen. I was really delighted because we managed, I don't know how, through pestering, I think, to get Linwood Barkley, who is the person responsible for me reading crime fiction. I only started reading crime fiction when I was about 24, and his No Time for Goodbye was the first crime book I ever read and thought, whoa, what is this? How have I missed all of this?
Yeah.
But there's people, like I said earlier, there's emerging writers who we've had on who I either think are going to be huge in the next few years. So Chris MacDonald, Danny Marshall, Susie Aspley. Oh, I could name dozens of them, honestly, people who are up and coming. Ashley and many others. Please forgive me if I haven't mentioned you. Simon Buick.
Sorry, no.
Sorry, did the beer go down the wrong way there?
It did, yeah.
Yeah. But also, we've been so lucky to have big names who have come to the bar, given their time for free. People like Anne Cleves, people like Linwood Barclay, who have joined us. They've gained nothing from it, I guess. They don't need our help, but they've still come and spent the time with us. And that. But I've said before, the crime fiction community is 1 in a million, so it's no big surprise. Neil, who would you like to see there?
I think Stephen King would be quite good. Who else?
Quite good.
I think he could probably do it. Don Winslow would be fun. Try to think. God, because when you open it up, you've got this kind of list of kind of your favourite authors who you'd love to see. Ian would be great, because it'd be great to go for a pint with him afterwards, because he seems to know where all the good pubs are. But yeah, anybody really like that. I don't really have a kind of hit list of I desperately need to see them at Noir. I think it's the experience itself. Obviously, big names are great, and if somebody wants to tag Stephen King into this on Twitter, I'd be more than happy with that. I would like to
get James Elroy, because James Elroy is such a brilliant speaker. I've seen him speak a couple of times live, and he did answer my question when I was a very young aspiring writer. That was great. And the question I asked him was, how do you get away? You're so fearless writing such scandalous things about famous real people. How do you do it? And he said, well, the secret is wait till they're dead. And I thought, that's some good advice there. Take that.
Seems fair. I think I would like a lot more. I really love Laura Lippman and I really love Alafair Burke, because I feel like I haven't named a lot of female authors who I think are fabulous. But actually, I've said it before, but Charlotte Levin, who's written my favourite book of the year, she joined us a couple of weeks ago and she was just fantastic, and it's a great book. So a lot of my people on my hit list have actually been ticked off.
I just, when I first started this, it was a bit of a surprise, because I was invited by UK Crime Book Club. I've been on blogging tour for 5 years now, and I think I must have interviewed over 70 people, and I'm trying to work out who I'd want. And I think Linwood Barclay's got to be one of the ones for me as well. And it was Trust Your Eyes for me. That one was brilliant. Yeah.
I really loved the way he did his reading, because we got a sample of about probably knocking on a dozen of his books in 10 minutes, which I just thought was excellent, and totally in the spirit of Noir at the Bar. It was funny and fun, and I really enjoyed that.
I mean, the single words was quite funny. I just thought it must have taken him ages to try and come up with that unique way of doing it. I just think, great.
Yeah.
I
think there's some questions on the panel, Alex. If you want, do you want me to read the questions for you?
Yes, please, if you could. Yeah.
Yeah. So how important has the anthology been to you all? Simon?
Well, 2 nervous breakdowns later, it's been really important. No, it's. I think
that lawsuit is quite important.
Yes, not just the anthology, but the whole virtual Noir at the Bar. I mean, I hadn't had the chance to go to a physical Noir at the Bar. Well, one. I'd been to one before this, and it's really just, as Vic said, we've had a lot of very experienced writers, and as brilliant as their readings have been, I think what's been really great is their encouragement for newer writers as well, both
Yeah.
in the rehearsals beforehand, in the chats afterwards, in the support that they give.
Yeah.
So that's been great. So the fact that just from doing virtual Noir at the Bar, I was able to have a dialogue with 30 different authors who, before virtual Noir at the Bar, I wouldn't have had the chance to speak to. That's been great. Now, I do feel is Hollywood fake as it sounds, that I have made friends from the whole thing that I wouldn't otherwise have got. I haven't met any of them in person yet, but maybe one day. So it's been really important, and
For me, the anthology, because all profits go to the NHS charities, because we've established I've obviously had a lot of medical intervention over the course of my life, it's really important to me that after 3 weeks, the anthology had raised over £1,000 to go to NHS charities. And although my treatment alone would have cost lots more, it was given something back, and particularly after the last few months in terms of what NHS staff go through, that was massive for me. But like Simon says, you do make friends along the way. You meet people that you haven't met before, and you forge these bonds with them. And that's something that's lovely about virtual Noir at the Bar and real life Noir at the Bar, as Neil was saying.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. I think, just to kind of echo that, it was nice to be able, in a time where I make up stuff for a living, that doesn't seem very important at the moment. So it was nice to be able to do something constructive for the people who are doing the hard work. The people who are looking after my pal Vic, the people like my pal Alice, who is working frontline in the NHS at the moment. So it was nice to be able to take what I do, which is a thing of whimsy at times, and use it to do something constructive. And the other side is just exactly what Vic said about, the Noir at the Bar is a chance. And this is one thing I've missed in lockdown, is it's a chance to get together with your pals. And the writing community is that. It's like going for a works night out with people you actually like working with.
What did you like about the anthology, Alex? I know you've read it recently.
It was the range of different stories in it, because there was a vast range of all forms of the genre in there.
Yeah.
Lock Room was a big one.
Yeah.
The Cavalier's Revenge, I think that was it.
Excuse me.
Big one.
I think that's a good point, and it was something we really strived to do when we were putting it together, to try and classify stories, because some of them, Neil's is a great example, I think, that are, I think we, in the book, we called it a drop of the hard stuff, and we put those books towards the end and tried to give a warning, which I know one person on Amazon didn't feel we warned enough about, but I don't really see how much more we could have done. Not that I'm bitter or anything, but we had something for everyone, I think, to say, here's your cozy dramas, here's your twists, here's your slightly longer form ones, and here are some really gritty, to make it a bit more of a bar experience. Whatever you fancy this particular night at the bar, you can find something from whether it's from the top shelf Mrs. or
and I love that you categorized them like cocktails. I just thought that was such a great idea. That was lovely. Samantha would like to know, Neil, as you don't plan, do you write the book in order, or do you weave it together at the end?
Completely linear, because I'm telling the story to myself, so it unfolds as it would normally. So yeah, I never write a scene and then drop it in later on. It's not the most relaxing way of working, but it seems to work so far.
And one last question: who do you all enjoy reading, and do you read genres other than crime? I read most genres, to be honest. I'm possibly not as into science fiction as Simon O'Neill, but yeah, as long as the premise takes me, I'll give anything a go once.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I'm pretty voracious. I mean, I'll stick. Crime is obviously, you know, the kind of the main one that I do. But as I've said, Stephen King, I grew up reading Stephen King. So if I get a chance, I'll jump in on his stuff as much as I can. Other than that, writers I would recommend, we've mentioned Derek Farrell. Rob Parker's new one's brilliant, and I don't think Craig Russell gets near enough. I don't think Craig Russell gets near enough recognition for the work that he does on either the Jan Fabel series in Germany or the Lennox series, which is in 1950s Glasgow. I don't think, and he wrote the most immersive thing I will ever read, which was in a book called The Third Testament, and it's about a woman who has dementia. It's one chapter long, and it gives you dementia. So
That's what you, yeah.
That's what you call immersive writing. So yeah, I think Craig should get a lot more shout outs than he does. And if I don't mention old man Douglas Skelton, I'll get my head kicked in, so I better say him. But joking aside, he's another war writer that just doesn't get the recognition that he deserves.
And
Where
he's
could you
joining
see
us
him
this
speaking
Wednesday.
in the near future, Neil?
Say again, sorry?
Where could you see him speaking in the near future?
Oh, I think he might be persuaded to speak at a virtual Noir at the Bar.
That sounds
In
good.
2 days, no less.
In 2 days. Mark it in your diaries, folks. And definitely have a drink at your side for that one.
What made you decide to come up with the music for the breaks as well? Because that's been a new thing in the last few weeks, and
Yeah,
added something, I think.
I mean, I think since we started, we've really just tried to improve each week as we go along. I mean, not in terms of the authors, because they've always been brilliant, but from my side of things, doing the techie bits in the background, it's just been little improvements each week. So we used standard library music, copyright free to begin with, and then having, we have an expression up in Newcastle: shy Ben's getting out. If you don't ask for something, you have got no chance. It's the Geordie equivalent of Wayne Gretzky saying, "I miss 100% of the shots I don't take." So if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. So I just started going to musicians that I liked and asking if we could use their music, if I promised to cut it out of the video recordings of it, and there's only been one who's refused, actually. So we've had some great names, and we've got some great names coming up. We've got one of my all-time guitar heroes on Wednesday night. So and Vic's dad's favorite, which kind of depressed me when I asked
do
her
know
if she'd
who that
heard of
is.
this
Yes,
group.
okay. Yes. I mean,
So,
if you could get Bon Jovi
yeah,
to do it, I'd be delighted.
there's crimes against,
Bon Jovi, no?
Yeah.
Britney Spears? No?
We've got 2 minutes to go. So anybody out there's got a burning question, type it in the side.
We've got one. What are your most memorable moments as authors?
Good question. I suppose that the first moment of walking into a bookshop and seeing it there and seeing the promise done, that was pretty special. After all that time of saying I'm going to dedicate this to my gran, etc., etc., and then walking into a bookshop, picking it off a shelf and seeing it there, that was pretty good. Getting nominated for the Bloody Scotland Book of the Year award for my debut was pretty good as well. Very surreal. The type of phone call that I still remember getting it. I was taking the bins out and my publisher phoned me and said, "You've been nominated," and it just kind of blew me away. So yeah, but it's been, to be honest, getting published, it's been great, the entire thing, because the community is so supportive and there are such good people out there.
I would say personally, sorry. I was just going to say, personally, for me, it would be submitting my very first story, having it published, being nominated for Ellen Datlow. I was given an honourable mention in Ellen Datlow's Year's Best Horror and Science Fiction, and I thought, this is easy. You know, this is the very first thing I've published, and then got nothing for about 8 years afterwards, rejection after rejection. So it was a bit of a false start, but
I'm not as far on as either of these guys, really. I've had short stories published, which is always a thrill. I've been in a few charity anthologies. I've won a couple of competitions for fiction and non-fiction writing, and they were local competitions, but they do amazing things for your confidence when you're just starting out and you haven't really, you don't know if people are just being nice to you or not. But actually, I've had a couple of interesting conversations with agents over the last 18 months or so. And again, although they haven't come to anything, I think they're pretty special when you find out that somebody who hasn't got a vested interest in you thinks you can write. That's a really lovely feeling. And someone is asking us to show your latest book. So I wrote the foreword in this one. That was my big contribution.
I don't have the proofs for the new one yet.
We could put links to get all the books in the comments at the bottom afterwards. So
thank you.
That's brilliant. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. I've really enjoyed it. Really different.
That was
Thank you
brilliant.
for
Thanks,
having
guys.
us.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to join us, you can register to be in Wednesday's audience, and it's free.
I will